Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the February 3rd, 2016 edition of the Midweek Update here on Rasslin with Redbeard. If there's a smile on my face, it's because in preparing for this show for the first time in about a month, I haven't had to look at pictures of Tammy Sitch. Number 5 story of the week is that Lucha Underground has been renewed for a third season. This is a pretty crazy story from the standpoint that after season 1, people seemingly waited around forever to find out if there was going to be a season 2. And yet here we are, literally 1 week into season 2, and we already know that we're going to have a season 3. So as big Lucha Underground fans here, as we are around Rasslin with Redbeard, this is great news. It's great to know that they're going to be around and that they're getting an opportunity to continue the narratives and to continue the stories that they've begun to build with this franchise and with this company as a whole. Great talent on display here. It's a totally different thing from what a lot of people are used to in this country as far as professional wrestling is concerned, and really anywhere for that matter, because it's not just Lucha Libre. It's something bigger than professional wrestling, bigger than Lucha. And I'm a big fan of it. I love the style that they present and the stories, the characters. Of course, it's all very crazy and very out there, but it's just very entertaining. That's something that I enjoy watching. And I don't think that's what somebody like Jim Cornette really understands, because he had some comments here recently that came kind of on the cusp of the announcement of the season 3 being something that Lucha Underground is going for, to where he basically described Lucha Underground's product as being horse poop. Not poop though. He used, of course, the full language there, but still, I don't think people get what Lucha Underground is supposed to be. It's not traditional professional wrestling. Cornette thinks of wrestling as this thing that should be this simulated version of MMA, and that's fine because everybody can have their own thing in terms of professional wrestling, but Lucha Underground is a different beast. It's very entertaining. If you guys aren't watching it, I definitely would encourage you to do so, because it's not like anything else, but it's not that difficult to get into either if you haven't watched it before. There's familiar faces and there's a lot of new talent on there as well, so definitely look forward to seeing what's to come in season 2 and even more in season 3 of Lucha Underground. Number 4 story of the week is that the injury bug is continuing to plague professional wrestling. It's gotten almost to the point of an epidemic here in professional wrestling as it relates to some of the top stars being affected by injuries. Here within the past week, we've had news come across of not only Sheamus, Alberto Del Rio, Kurt Angle, and now Davey Richards as well. All of them are on the shelf currently, or at least being held out of major action because of a variety of injuries. Sheamus posted an image of himself on Twitter here the past couple of days where he had a cast on his right arm. We haven't gotten clarification as to what that injury actually is or what the prognosis is going to be going forward. Del Rio, of course, is his partner in the League of Nations faction in WWE. He's been dealing with what has been described as either a back or neck injury. Of course, he did make an appearance on Raw, but he did not wrestle. He was at ringside for basically commentary. And then moving over to TNA, TNA's been on a UK tour here the past couple of weeks, and they've got 2 guys who are now dealing with injury. One guy who, unfortunately, is not going to be able to compete for some time, and that's Davey Richards, because apparently he's got a torn meniscus. That's a surgery. It's going to be something that will take a couple of months for him to rehab and get back from. The other real big story coming out of the TNA UK tour, other than one that we'll mention here in a few moments, is Kurt Angle evidently having gotten his belt rung or possibly suffered a concussion during that tour. And that's something that, a guy like him, with all the injuries that he's already amounted to during his career, really cannot afford. And it's one thing that you hear about him being done with TNA and the potential for him to go possibly to WWE or to some other company. And, it just doesn't look likely at this point in time that someone else will pick him up and say, okay, here's a full-time contract. We want you to work 50 days a year or something along those lines. This does not seem likely at this point. Even though he's a tremendous athlete, I think Angle's got enough wear and tear on him that he really should consider hanging him up. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens to all these guys. But this is just another example of how depleted roster WWE is working with for sure. And we'll have to wait and see what kind of opportunities are going to come up because of these gaps. We're still in the thick of WrestleMania season. We've still got a lot of stuff to get cleared up between here and when WrestleMania 32 does happen. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be a challenge for creative and for apparently the roster to keep up with the schedule and for the demand of their bodies. Tough stuff, really tough stuff. Number 3 story is some rather upsetting news, that being the fact that Bret Hart has announced that he's battling prostate cancer. Bret Hart was a personal favorite of mine as a kid. The excellence of execution was always something that I enjoyed hearing him talk about, and hearing him being involved with promos that he would do with the Hart Foundation and various other talents that were big in the 80s. Hart was always one of those guys that you could count on to have a tremendous match. It didn't seem to matter who his opponent was, and this was something that seemingly was ingrained in his very DNA, of course, and that of his brother as well, Owen. We're hoping to hear that this is not an incredibly advanced stage of prostate cancer. We're hoping this is something that he will be able to fight and that he will certainly be able to overcome. It's going to be a challenge, of course, as is any cancer treatment. Family members deal with this type of thing, so it's not something I don't think anybody is really all that unfamiliar with, unfortunately, anymore. Just the prospect of dealing with a cancer diagnosis at some point in your life. But be that as it may, in the announcement that Bret Hart made, he addressed it with all the vim and vigor that you would expect out of the excellence of execution. I have every confidence that he's going to fight this thing to the best of his ability, and we're definitely sending good vibes and good thoughts his way and hoping that he can make a full recovery from this. He's going to be having surgery later this week to remove some of that tissue, and hopefully that'll be the start of the recovery process for him. And without too much delay there, he'll be able to get on the road to recovery. So we definitely wish him well. Number 2 story of the week is that Awesome Kong has been sent home from TNA's UK tour. This is a crazy story. It involves Kong, Rebby Sky, of course, who is Matt Hardy's wife and also baby mama. I had to throw that term in there because you don't get to say the word baby mama all that frequently. But evidently, some type of physical altercation happened between the two of them, as Rebby was trying to, use the women's locker room, and evidently Kong took some disparaging thought towards Rebby. There's more to this story than what we've seen so far, and I've been trying to dig up details on what could maybe have transpired between the two of them at some point in time in the past. But they definitely seem to have some type of heat between one another, because Kong essentially throttled Rebby Sky in front of gosh knows how many other individuals. From various reports, left marks around her throat, which to me is a little bit far beyond just a simple backstage fight. That's where you're throttling and trying to choke someone. So she was sent home. Kong was. They had evidently continued the tour without her. But this is just a crazy thing from the standpoint that Kong is someone who's had a number of opportunities to take advantage of what is certainly a unique presence in terms of her physicality and her look and her abilities in the world of professional wrestling. And she's had just a number of things that have come up that have really derailed her career. And I think this probably will be the most significant one, because politically speaking, that was a terrible idea to go after someone like Rebby Sky. It's a terrible idea to go after someone like that, period. But considering Matt is the champion in TNA right now, he holds a lot of clout, and that's going to trickle down to her. So I would be surprised if Kong is around TNA for that long after this particular incident. We'll have to wait and see, though, because the fact of the matter is, companies like TNA are so hard struck for talent and for the ability to have someone who's a dedicated hand, like she could be with her contract, that they may keep her around just because. So we'll have to wait and see. But regardless, it's something that could definitely trickle into a legal matter. It just kind of depends on how they want to handle it. But yeah, she was definitely sent home, and justifiably so, in my opinion. And the number 1 story of the week is that Daniel Bryan's WWE career could likely be over. This is some troubling news, and it's a combination of things that have been going on for quite some time. Daniel Bryan, as most everyone knows, has been dealing with a number of injuries, the worst of which have been multiple concussions that he suffered over the course of his career. Normally speaking, and if this were 10 or 15 years ago, at this point in time, Daniel Bryan would still be an active wrestler on WWE's roster. However, because of the nature of things currently, with the lawsuits that are being filed against WWE, with the knowledge that we now have of what head injuries involve and what post-traumatic injuries can be, something that people who have a number of concussions have to deal with. It's just a bad situation for him because he may be fine. And from what he's been saying on various social media platforms, he's gotten clearance from a number of doctors. But WWE as a company simply can't take the risk, evidently, of letting him back on the main roster and letting him compete. He's, from what the reports have come across the web, he's been offered a number of positions, things behind the scenes, possibly some on-camera roles, but he's turned them down because he still wants to wrestle, and that's admirable. But at the same time, he may have to consider seriously, I have to think about my own quality of life here after wrestling. It's one thing to go out there and continue to work, continue to compete, and get hurt again and again and again. And what are you 20 years later? A vegetable? Are you violent? Are you incapable of remembering your kids' names? It's one of those things you have to think about. But at the same time, it is upsetting from the standpoint of a fan because you'd love to see him compete, you'd love to see him back out there. But you kind of have to understand, too, what WWE's take on this is, because they can't endanger themselves at this point in time. It's a different world than it was 10 or 15 years ago when it comes to head injuries. Trauma is a lot more understood now than it was at that point in time. But we'll have to see what happens. He may very well try and leave WWE. I don't think that's one of those things that's likely to happen. But here again, if he wants to compete, he's going to find a way to do it somehow. And speaking of competition, we've got a lot of it going on this weekend. As you can tell, my throat has not improved over the past couple of weeks. We may have as many as 15 shows, if not more, happening this coming weekend. So let's go ahead and roll those posters, and we'll let you know what's going on in this part of the world across the Carolinas and also Georgia in terms of the independent scene. There you have it, our rundown of the events that are happening in this part of the world this coming weekend. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Before we get going with our little wrap-up, we wanted to take a moment to show off a little piece of hardware that's actually one of a number of pieces of hardware that we're going to be hopefully handing out in the next couple of weeks. We mentioned here a few weeks ago about our involvement with the awards that are being referred to as the Carolinas Professional Wrestling Awards. We were involved in the moderation of those awards this year, and we've also gotten here in the mail some actual awards that we'll hopefully be able to hand out here in the next couple of weeks. These are some nice little pieces that we had made custom from a vendor that we were able to locate online who gave us a nice little deal on those there. But at any rate, If you are a wrestler or a promoter in this area and you didn't see your poster in that previous segment, it's because we didn't know about it. We do our best to peruse social media to keep ourselves informed of what's happening in this part of the world, but we do miss things. That said, if you're a wrestler or promoter or in some way involved with the promotion, send us your poster and your information. We'll be glad to have it here on the show and also on the Facebook page there. We've got a number of albums containing upcoming event posters. Appreciate you guys tuning in once again. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and click that like button. And if you enjoy what we've got on the channel, go ahead and click subscribe. That way you'll be the first to know whenever we've posted something new. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next week.